Distinguished delegates, the 10th meeting of the 56th session on the Commission on Population and Development is called to order. This afternoon, the Commission will conclude the work for this session. I now invite the Commission to continue the consideration of Agenda Item 3, Sub-Item B, entitled Population, Education, and Sustainable Development. Before we'll hear the remaining speakers from this morning, I wish to let the Commission know how I intend to proceed. So, after hearing the remaining speakers, my intention is to withdraw the resolution. Now, I will give the floor to the first speaker from the list, which is the distinguished representative of Mauritania. You have the floor, please.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. أود في البداية أن أشكركم وأشكر أيضا المسيرين على جهودهم. كما أود أن أؤكد على انضمام بلادي للبيان الذي أدلى به ممثل الاتحاد الروسي نيابة عن مجموعة من الدول. السيد الرئيس، إن هذا النص لا يحظى بالتوافق، وهذه سابقة في أعمال هذه اللجنة منذ أكثر من عقدين من الزمن، وقد تم كسر إجراء الصمت، وكانت بلادي من بين الدول 22 التي كسرت هذا الإجراء. السيد الرئيس، لقد قدم هذا النص في وقت متأخر من مساء أمس، أي منذ أقل من 24 ساعة، الشيء الذي لم يتح لنا الوقت الكافي لنقاشه وفهمه، خصوصا أنه جاء بلغة واحدة، وهو ما يشكل عائقا إضافيا في فهمه، فقد كنا نرقب أن تصلنا النسخة العربية منه. السيد الرئيس، انطلاقا مما تقدم وبوصفنا عضو في هذه اللجنة، نطالب بحذف الفقرتين 16 و 17 التي لا تحظى بالتوافق. وشكرا سيد الرئيس.
I thank the distinguished representative of Mauritania and now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Bulgaria. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to align our intervention with the one made this morning by Sweden on behalf of the EU and its member states. We also support the statements made in national capacity of a number of like-minded countries like UK, US, Argentina, Costa Rica, and others. Mr. Chair, I will be brief, obviously, after you announced what the result will be. I am taking the floor to express our appreciation of all the efforts you and the other Bureau members put in the attempt to achieve a consensual result from the work of the Commission. Bulgaria is not a member this year, but being a member of the Bureau for 2 consecutive years before, I know how hard it is, and I know how heavy the responsibility you have is. Bulgaria continues to support the work of the Commission and value its recommendations and guidance. My country participated actively in its work this year through the participation in the negotiating process, in general debate, and also organizing a side event. And this is because the issues at stake are crucial for all countries and all people as individuals. Mr. Chair, having said that, I believe that the least we can do is to support you, the document, and your approach, and we do so, and we are really sorry that we cannot have a result this year. It doesn't do good to anybody, nor the Commission, nor to us countries. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Bulgaria. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Jamaica. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, my delegation regrets that we have arrived at this point in the negotiation of the outcome of this session of the Commission. We have participated actively in the multiple consultations, and we have listened intently to the views shared this morning by many members and observers of the Commission. What is clear to us, as it should be to anyone else, is that there is no consensus on the draft resolution under consideration. Jamaica for certain would not have been in a position to support the text as it now stands. The issues are indeed sensitive and require careful calibration. It is our view that before the Commission could take action on the draft, it requires additional work and efforts would have been needed on all sides to fashion a document that can truly meet the goals of the Commission as a whole. Given the importance of the work of this Commission, it is crucial that we speak as one on these issues and not run the risk of taking a divided approach. We offer our fullest commitment to working with others to reaching an agreeable outcome for the Commission in future. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Jamaica, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Ghana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity one more time. I want to clarify what I said, my earlier comments. First, I clarify that I was not speaking on behalf of the African community, but in my national capacity. Secondly, I was referring to reproductive health education and services as pertains in Ghana, not as comprehensive sexuality education as in the text. And so I stand by reproductive health education and services based on country norms and values as pertains in Ghana. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank the distinguished representative of Ghana. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Guatemala.
Muchas gracias por darme la palabra, señor presidente. Guatemala agradece el trabajo de la presidencia y de cada uno de los miembros de la mesa por la extensa labor en la organización de este 56 periodo de sesiones de la Comisión de Población y Desarrollo. Reconocemos el excelente trabajo de los facilitadores de México e Indonesia, quienes guiaron las negociaciones del texto que tenemos. Sabemos que históricamente ha sido un texto complejo que depende de la participación constructiva de cada una de las delegaciones, cuya flexibilidad y mutuo entendimiento es indispensable. En esta ocasión, Guatemala lamenta de sobremanera la falta de un documento, lo cual consideramos impacta en el trabajo de la Comisión de Población y Desarrollo, valioso para brindar orientación política actualizada y recomendaciones respecto a las dinámicas poblacionales a nivel mundial. Es preocupante que temas de alta importancia para Guatemala contenidos en la propuesta de texto como el rol de la educación para la formación de sociedades más inclusivas, la protección de los derechos humanos, la erradicación de la pobreza, la protección de los migrantes y la lucha contra la violencia que afecta a las mujeres y niñas se quedarán sin ser aprobados. Finalizo, señor presidente, expresando que nuestro país valora que la Comisión de Población y Desarrollo impulse políticas inclusivas, equitativas y sostenibles, incluyendo en materia de educación de conformidad con las leyes y prioridades nacionales. Es el momento de acelerar las acciones para implementar la Agenda 2030 y la educación debe seguir siendo nuestra herramienta más poderosa. Muchas gracias.
I thank the distinguished representative of Guatemala, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Mexico. Please, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. México lamenta que a pesar de los esfuerzos de los cofacilitadores y el hecho de que México estuviera participando demostraba el interés que teníamos en que llegáramos a un buen resultado, la polarización y en ocasiones la desinformación hayan sido al final del día un impedimento para refrendar los objetivos y el mandato de esta comisión y del programa de acción de la Conferencia Internacional sobre Población y Desarrollo. Para mi país, para México, la esencia de esta organización es el multilateralismo, en el cual se respetan sin imposición alguna la diversidad de contextos nacionales, sociales, culturales, religiosos y sobre todo la facultad de cada país de implementar los avances en distintos temas. México considera desalentador y preocupante que a pesar de la gran evidencia que existe sobre diferentes temas como la violencia basada en género, la diversidad de las personas, los derechos sexuales y reproductivos y la educación sexual integral, las múltiples e interseccionales formas de discriminación, existen algunos países con una gran resistencia a reconocer realidades que no son impuestas desde Naciones Unidas o del exterior, sino que forman parte de nuestra esencia como seres humanos. Dentro de cada jurisdicción nacional, bajo sus propios contextos políticos, sociales, culturales y religiosos. Debemos recordar que a pesar de nuestras diferencias como países, nos une nuestra condición humana, nuestra aspiración de lograr un mundo mejor que no deje a nadie atrás, que garantice derechos humanos y, por sobre todo, como Estados miembros reconozcamos nuestra obligación y compromiso de garantizar una vida digna, una educación de calidad e información que permita a nuestros ciudadanos tomar mejores decisiones para un futuro próspero. México continuará abogando a favor de una mayor coherencia y por acuerdos que busquen mejorar la calidad de vida de todas las personas, en particular quienes se encuentran en situación de vulnerabilidad. La educación sexual, señor presidente, no debe ser un tabú, debe estar sujeta a la edad de las personas que la reciban, a las jurisdicciones nacionales y a los contextos culturales y religiosos. Concluyo felicitándolo a usted de parte de México, a la mesa y a los Estados miembros de la Comisión por todo el trabajo realizado. Muchísimas gracias.
I thank the distinguished representative of Mexico, and now I'll give the floor to the distinguished representative of Sweden on behalf of European Union. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have the honor to speak on behalf of the European Union and its member states. The candidate countries, Montenegro, Albania, Ukraine, and Bosnia-Herzegovina, the potential candidate country, Georgia, and members of, and the EFTA country, Liechtenstein, member of the European Economic Area, align themselves with this statement. The EU and its member states would like to thank the Chair, Bureau members, the co-facilitators and Secretariat for all their efforts in this process. It is deeply regrettable that in spite of commitment to the process and the flexibility of many delegations, including the European Union and its member states, an outcome could not be reached. We would like to express our frustration about the fact that a small number of delegations have prevented an outcome, despite our efforts to try to present compromise proposals that could have bridged the different positions, and regardless of the fact that the Chair's text reverted back to language previously agreed by this Commission on sensitive paragraphs, that the Commission's resolutions are non-binding, and that a sovereignty paragraph was included in the text. It is particularly unfortunate that we will not have a resolution on the important topic of population, education, and sustainable development this year, in the direct follow-up to the Transforming Educational Summit, and as we approach the milestone 30th anniversary of the ICPD next year. In line with the EU position, the European Union and its member states would have wished to see a strong outcome, and has therefore, throughout the negotiation process, worked constructively towards a resolution which would have been a step forward in ensuring inclusive, equitable, and gender-responsive quality education, empowering young persons to live their lives safely. Especially since this year's theme is education, population, and sustainable development, the European Union very much regrets that we have not even been able to reaffirm the commitments made in 2012 and 2014 on comprehensive education on human sexuality by this Commission, even though we would have wished for this text could be further strengthened in line with the EU's position to better reflect the realities on the ground. Other key provisions during the negotiations for the European Union were strong references to human rights, especially the rights of women and girls, as well as ensuring access to sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights, sexual and reproductive health care services, and meaningful youth participation. For the European Union, the International Conference on Population and Development, its program of action and the outcome of its reviews are more relevant than ever. especially in the current context marked by multiple crises, including the unprovoked war against Ukraine. The war has many consequences for population and related dynamics, especially for the most marginalized communities and those in vulnerable situations, including in terms of sexual and gender-based violence, as well as barriers that persons, including women and girls, face in their access to education and sexual and reproductive health services. For us, the ICPD Program of Action is a key instrument as it focuses on the needs, aspirations, and human rights of individuals. It aims to improve individual lives, to fight inequalities in order to achieve sustainable development. In spite of our disappointment regarding the failure to deliver on the resolution, the European Union remains committed to the promotion, protection and fulfillment of all human rights and to the full and effective implementation of the Beijing Platform for Action and the Programme of Action of the International Conference on Population and Development, and the outcomes of the review conferences, and remains committed to sexual and reproductive health and the rights in this context. Having that in mind, the European Union reaffirms its commitment to the promotion, protection and fulfillment of the right of every individual to have full control over and decide freely and responsibly on matters related to the sexuality and sexual and reproductive health, free from discrimination, coercion and violence. The European Union further stresses the need for universal access to quality and affordable comprehensive sexual and reproductive health information, education, including comprehensive sexuality, education, and healthcare services. Having said that, we do hope and will do everything we can to ensure that this year's Commission will not set a bad precedent for the future. We are looking forward to the next year's Commission and will once again constructively engage in discussions and contribute to a positive outcome on the important theme of assessing the status of the implementation of the Programme of Action of the International Conference on Population and Development and its contribution to the follow-up and review of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development during the decade of action and delivery for sustainable development. Thank you so much.
I thank the distinguished representative of Sweden on behalf of the European Union. And now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of the United States of America. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The United States thanks the Chair, our facilitators, and all member state colleagues for the collaboration and commitment to endeavor to reach an important consensus outcome at this Commission. It has been almost 20 years since the Commission last achieved a dedicated resolution on education. This week, the Commission hosted a diverse and inclusive dialogue driven by a shared urgency around the critical importance of improving equitable access to education. The significance of achieving consensus would reflect a sustained commitment to implement the 1994 ICPD Program of Action and anchor its agenda for relevance across efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. The theme of education could not have been more timely as we drive forward the purpose of this Commission, particularly as we prepare to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the ICPD in 2024 and reach the midpoint of the 2030 Agenda determined to leave no one behind. The consensus achieved in 1994 on global health, gender equality, and human rights in Cairo was historic. Its articulation of sexual reproductive health and rights and the transformative impact of education is a benchmark. We are extremely disappointed that an outcome was not achievable due to a small number of Commission members and the inability to recognize the previous work of the Commission and to accept the previously agreed language from the 2014 resolution titled The Assessment of the Status of Implementation of the Program of Action of the ICPD. However, we continue to remain grateful to the Chair and the co-facilitators for the principled effort to build consensus and to propose an outcome document which effectively captured the Commission's momentum. Through the negotiating process, member states made considerable strides in finding common ground on inclusive education, gender equality as adolescents and youth as agents of change, improving health outcomes, preventing and responding to gender-based violence, sexual reproductive health and rights, the importance of high-quality population data, and the essential roles of the UN Population Fund and Population Division. We regard the substantive dialogue, the coordination, the collaboration as positive and salient, particularly given the importance of our contribution to the regional commissions of the UN in preparation for the 30th review of the implementation of the ICPD Program of Action. We share the frustration over the resistance to the established and recognized technical term, comprehensive sexuality education. The UN's normative guidance on sexuality education is almost 15 years old, designed to meet the diverse needs of member states for an evidence-informed technical resource to scale up their efforts to promote health and well-being. The normative guidance must continue to reflect the latest research on the effectiveness of interventions to support the global community's progress towards sustainable development with effective tools at our disposal. The broad diversity of national statements, the language of the panelists and UN partners, and the dynamic contributions of civil society affirm that individuals, communities, and countries embrace and recognize the importance of evidence-based comprehensive sexuality education, as well as sexual reproductive health and rights. We remained heartened by the consensus that was jointly achieved in 2022 at UNAIDS and the commitment it shows to work towards an AIDS-free generation. Achieving many of the bold commitments in the 2030 Agenda requires an inclusive approach. The Commission's particular challenges reflect the broad struggle around stigma and discrimination related to intersectionality, the inclusion of members of marginalized populations, including persons with disabilities, LGBTQI+ individuals, and the challenge to leave no one behind. The United States firmly recognizes and affirms that leaving no one behind ultimately depends on advancing the sexual reproductive health and rights of all individuals. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, for the outstanding way in which you conducted our business this week. We look forward to our full and collaborative engagement throughout the preparations for ICPD plus 30. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of the United States of America. And now, distinguished delegates, we have heard the last speaker in my list. Sorry, two more or even more. Okay. Distinguished delegates, I will be giving now the floor to the distinguished representative of Canada. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have the honor of delivering this statement on behalf of Australia, Finland, New Zealand, Norway, and my own country, Canada. At the outset, we would like to thank you, Mr. Chair, for your leadership of this commission. We would also like to thank your team, as well as Mexico and Indonesia, for their patience and efforts, and all delegations who engaged constructively in this process. Mr. Chair, the Commission's mandate is to implement the program of action of the ICPD, as well as the outcome of its reviews. Its mandate is crucial, I'll repeat, crucial, to achieving our global commitments on education, health, and inclusive, sustainable development, anchored in population policies that uphold commitments to human rights and gender equality. The 2014 language, adopted by consensus by this very Commission, should have been the starting point for negotiations rather than a divisive issue. This does not take us closer to achieving SDG 4, nor is it the way forward to make progress across the spectrum for development efforts from SDG 1 to SDG 17. Mr. Chair, we would have wanted and expected to be able to agree on a more ambitious document on the eve of the 30th anniversary, a document at all at this point. Our delegations are deeply disappointed that opposition by a small group of countries has blocked meaningful progress for the entire UN membership and UN agencies. Ultimately, it is those who are the most marginalized, in most vulnerable situations, and are at-risk children, adolescents, and youth around the world who will be impacted by what we do here. It's a fact that a considerable number of countries from all regions recognize the benefits of gender-responsive approaches of responding and promoting sexual and reproductive health and rights, and of comprehensive sexuality education. Not that we haven't said that word enough lately. We also note that this resolution, at least the draft version of this resolution, contained a prominent paragraph restating the obvious point that nothing this Commission decides infringes on the sovereign rights of member states. We are deeply disappointed that despite this fact, a way forward was not found. Across the UN and across the world, we are collectively calling for more ambition, especially for the generations that come after us, for greater political will and for reform to ensure that our institutions and our actions are fit for purpose to achieve the SDGs and to respond to today's challenges. Let us set the same standards for this Commission and its resolutions, and for the achievement of quality education for all, including CSE, for SRHR, for universal access to sexual and reproductive health services, including for family planning, information, and education, for gender equality, and for the empowerment of all women and girls in all their diversity. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Canada. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Argentina. Please, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Quiero comenzar por expresar nuevamente nuestra apreciación por su labor en guiar nuestros trabajos durante esta comisión, así como también el trabajo de los facilitadores del proceso de negociación de la resolución. Asimismo, nos es preciso indicar que nos decepciona profundamente que luego de semanas de intensas negociaciones, esta comisión no haya podido llegar a un consenso sobre una resolución referida a un tema que consideramos de la mayor importancia, como es la educación. La educación es un derecho humano fundamental. Los Estados tenemos la obligación de garantizar que todas las personas puedan disfrutar de su derecho a una educación de calidad, inclusiva y equitativa, para todos y todas, sin discriminación de ningún tipo. Como reconoce el programa de acción de la CIPD, la educación sexual integral es un componente clave de la educación. Durante todo el proceso de negociación hemos escuchado sólidos argumentos resaltando la necesidad de contar con un texto que dé cuenta de la importancia que la educación sexual integral tiene tanto para el alcance de los ODS 4 y 5 como del desarrollo sostenible en general. Hemos escuchado distintas delegaciones de todo el mundo comentar sobre cómo aplican programas de educación sexual integral en sus propios países y el impacto positivo que estos han tenido en el terreno. La evidencia es clara. La educación sexual integral retrasa la iniciación sexual, reduce la violencia dentro de las relaciones y mejora los resultados de salud. La educación integral para la sexualidad es más que simplemente proporcionar a los jóvenes información sobre la salud sexual y reproductiva. Se trata de equiparlos con las habilidades que necesitan para manejar relaciones de manera segura, tomar decisiones informadas, evitar la violencia y garantizar que puedan vivir vidas felices, saludables y plenas. Creemos firmemente que el texto presentado por el señor presidente de esta comisión reflejaba cabalmente las discusiones mantenidas durante todo el proceso de negociación y representaba un balance entre las posiciones expresadas por todas las delegaciones. Y vemos con particular preocupación que debido a la oposición de un pequeño grupo de delegaciones de esta comisión no se haya logrado un acuerdo sobre el lenguaje acordado en este mismo ámbito hace casi ya 10 años. Desde la Argentina continuaremos trabajando para garantizar que todos y todas puedan disfrutar de su derecho a la educación, cumplir con nuestros compromisos de la CIPD y brindar a las y los jóvenes la información, la educación y los servicios necesarios para abordar de manera responsable y positiva su sexualidad y vivir una vida saludable y plena. Muchas gracias.
I thank the distinguished representative of Argentina, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Israel. You have the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We wish to extend our gratitude to you, the Bureau, and the Secretariat for your leadership in guiding the Commission's session towards a conclusion. We take this opportunity to thank Mexico and Indonesia for their tireless efforts to reach a consensus on the resolution. This year's theme, Population, Education, and Sustainable Development, has been a long-standing priority for Israel. Quality education is a precondition for development and for a healthy population, and it is central to the promotion of gender equality and equal opportunities for all. Bearing in mind the wide gaps in access to quality education, especially for women, girls, and adolescents, we had hoped for a bold and ambitious resolution. Israel deeply regrets that we could not reach an agreement on such an important theme. We were deeply disappointed by the tension surrounding some of the elements in the resolution. We believe that the language put forward by the Chair represents the commitments that this Commission already agreed to in 2014 and is in line with the scientific and medical evidence that was presented by experts throughout the session. Comprehensive sexuality education is an important tool for the promotion and protection of health, human rights, and the empowerment of all, and in particular women and girls. It informs young people about health and safety, sexual and reproductive health and rights, and strengthens their ability to make their own choices about their bodies and futures. It can also be adapted to different contexts, ages, cultures, religious, and beliefs. Mr. Chair, in closing, we reiterate our support for the work of the Commission and assure you of Israel's commitment to deliver on the ICPD and the 2030 Agenda. We are not here to stand in place and most definitely not here to move backwards. Next year will be the 30th commemoration of the ICPD, which provides us with a valuable opportunity to reflect on our achievements, but also on what remains to be accomplished. We hope that we will be able to bridge our divides and adopt an ambitious and comprehensive text that advances the implementation of the ICPD program of action and the health and prosperity of our populations. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Israel, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Kenya. Please, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, Kenya conveys its appreciation to the permanent representative of Moldova for your able chairing of this session of the Commission on Population and Development. Kenya also appreciates the efforts to find consensus by Indonesia and Mexico as co-facilitators of this draft resolution. Mr. Chair, the link between education, population, and sustainable development is one of the key elements of the program of action of the ICPD. Kenya therefore emphasized the importance of having consensual outcome on this important topic. The outcome of this commission must respect the national position of all member states by avoiding elements which no longer garner consensus. We must do our best to find a middle ground between advocating for important issues related to education, population, and sustainable development while respecting the differences in national context, values, laws, and policies. Mr. Chair, we have taken note of the decision by the Chair, having listened to the views expressed by delegations. It's our hope that this withdrawal will pave the way for a consensual outcome in the future. I thank you, Chair.
I thank the distinguished representative of Kenya, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Zambia. You have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and your team for the effort and hard work that you put in trying to come up with a consensus. It's quite unfortunate that a consensus has not been reached. However, we as Zambia hope that next year's CPD will come up with acceptable language that will take the process forward. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Zambia. So we have heard the last speaker in my list, and I see there are no more requests for the floor. So thank you. Distinguished delegates, as announced before, I feel compelled to withdraw my text. I regret enormously that we have not been able to resolve the differences that remain, which I feel are not on the special theme of the session. I know that you have all tried, and I see no other possibility at this late hour than to withdraw my proposal. The Commission now has thus concluded its consideration of the agenda item 3 as a whole. We have more speakers, so I will be giving now the floor. We have a few more speakers. Now I will give the floor to the distinguished representative of Pakistan. Please, you have.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me, at the outset, express my delegation's deep regret that for the sake of promoting a certain agenda, a select group of countries did not allow the adoption of the agreed conclusions. Millions of children in developing countries, to be precise, as mentioned by the Secretary General's report, 263 million children are still not in school, are deprived of education, their fundamental right to education. We heard from many delegations this morning, and to our regret, that they kept saying that comprehensive sexuality education is part and parcel of human rights education. it may be so in their own national context. In my delegation's view, age-appropriate education, which also involves education on sexual and reproductive health, is significant and important. But to promote a certain priority, I heard that was the only priority, as if there was nothing else to be discussed in this resolution on education and population and social development. Nobody talked about those millions of children who are deprived of schools, who do not have books, who are malnourished, who do not have toilets in school, who do not have water and sanitation, who belong to poor families, who do not have access to internet, who do not have access to technology. That remains a big regret that we only focused only on one aspect, and for the sake of one aspect, while we understand and respect their position that it is an important national priority for some delegation to have comprehensive sexuality education, but we failed those 263 million children today for the sake of promoting one national agenda. That could have been compromised and a consensus could have been reached. I remember just last month, my delegation had a very strong position on foreign occupation, precisely because we have suffered from the vestiges and the oppression of foreign occupation from the last 7 decades. The reference to foreign occupation was not included, but my delegation accepted the deletion of the paragraph for the sake of millions of women and girls in the world who could have been deprived of the benefit of technology and innovation. Today, no flexibility was shown if paragraph OP 17 would have been deleted, which we kept on requesting for deletion throughout the negotiation, even after breaking of the silence. This text would have been adopted. But those delegations which wanted to promote their national agenda, and we respect their national agenda, they did not allow, for the sake of consensus, one aspect of their education which they think is most important, that is comprehensive sexuality education. They refused millions and millions of children their right to education. No one talked about financing and funding of education in developing countries. I did not hear a single voice this morning, and that is really regrettable. No voices were raised against those issues, which are crucial, which are making us not being able to achieve SDG 4 education. It is not comprehensive sexuality education that is preventing the achievement of SDG 4. It is rather the lack of resources, the lack of access to technology, the lack of access to internet, the lack of access to water, sanitation, schools, hygiene, books, is preventing millions of children from education. They can promote the aspect of education or a comprehensive sexuality education in their national context. That's why paragraph on sovereignty was important. Those countries had every right to implement in their best way comprehensive sexuality education, which they thought was proper in their national context, was allowed by their domestic laws, was a priority for them at the national level. But one country's priorities cannot be made priority for all. That's what multilateral negotiation is all about. We have to make compromises, except on maybe the common denominator that might be lower from the national threshold of what we have established. So we express our deep regret once again for the lack of adoption or lack of consensus that could be developed on this text today, just because of one aspect or one priority being promoted at the cost of education of millions of children in the world. We hope that this may not happen again. And if we look at even the very title of the resolution, it was population, education, and sustainable development. And that was the theme of this year's CPD. It was not population, comprehensive sexuality education, and sustainable development. For the sake of comprehensive education on human sexuality, we have compromised education as a whole. And we feel really sorry today that has happened for maybe not for those children who may be getting comprehensive sexuality education, but for those children who have been deprived of the very basic and fundamental right to education. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Pakistan, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Russian Federation. You have the floor.
Благодарю вас, уважаемый господин председатель. Мы слышали сегодня много оценок ситуации, с которой мы столкнулись, и с которой мы сталкивались на протяжении 3 недель. Мы на протяжении 3 недель видели, как согласованный в рамках повестки 2030, в рамках программы действий Международной конференции по народонаселению и развитию, в рамках основополагающих резолюций Генеральной Ассамблеи ООН текст отклонялся или не рассматривался. В то же время нам говорили и продолжают говорить сейчас, что текст 2014 года должен быть принят, при том, что в ответ в ходе переговоров многие делегации предлагали более сбалансированный и более всеобъемлющий текст, который включал все то, о чем говорили и постпред Австралии, и представитель Ганы в первом своем заявлении, и представитель Канады, и очень многие другие коллеги. Там речь шла и о предотвращении передачи инфекций, передающихся половым путем, и о предотвращении заражения ВИЧ-СПИД, и о правах человека, и о гендерном равенстве, и расширении возможностей женщин и девочек, и о справедливом балансе взаимоуважительных отношений между мужчинами и женщинами. Тем не менее, всего этого оказалось недостаточно делегациям. А вот чего конкретно оказалось недостаточно делегациям? Вот этот вопрос, как обычно, повис в воздухе. Вместо ответа отказывались принять текст, который был, всеобъемлющий текст, который был принят 3 недели тому назад и 3 месяца тому назад, и многократно принимался за последние 9 лет. И все это нам сегодня называют компромиссом, деликатным балансом и наименьшим общим деноминатором. Нам это трудно понять. Здесь несколько коллег ссылались на число стран, которые поддерживали данный проект, говорили, что лишь небольшое число стран не поддержали конкретные формулировки. Ну, об этом вы можете судить по нашей сегодняшней дискуссии. Страны, взломавшие процедуру умолчания, представляют более 1 миллиарда 100 миллионов человек. И, наверное, они заслуживают права, чтобы к ним хотя бы прислушались. Вот коллеги тоже упоминали предстоящий саммит по целям устойчивого развития. В преамбуле повестки 2030 есть такая фраза: «Отправляясь в этот совместный путь». В этот совместный путь. Не в качестве безбилетных пассажиров в грузовом отделении, а в качестве равноправных партнеров, которые способны сами за себя решать. И вот если бы не этот, а другой сигнал наша комиссия подала бы саммиту по целям устойчивого развития, это было бы очень печально. Мы вполне понимаем, насколько тяжело это решение, уважаемый господин председатель. И мы благодарим вас за мужественное решение, которое достойно уважения. Спасибо.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Belarus. You have the floor, please.
Благодарю, господин председатель. Хотели бы поблагодарить делегацию Мексики и Индонезии за проделанную работу по тексту резолюции. Вынуждены констатировать нашу озабоченность тем, что вопреки стараниям делегаций не удалось достичь важного консенсуса для принятия резолюции по такой важной теме. Важной как для детей, живущих сейчас, так и будущих поколений. Действительно, необходимо подчеркнуть, что вопреки всему здравому смыслу, весь фокус переговоров был направлен на один аспект, который был интересен определенному количеству государств, без учета интересов представителей таких же равноправных государств-членов. Господин председатель, благодарим вас за мудрый подход к традициям комиссии. Выражаем надежду, что на следующей сессии в делегации получится найти силы и такую же мудрость при согласовании следующей тематической резолюции. Благодарю.
I thank the distinguished representative of Belarus, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Holy See. You have the floor, please.
Mr. Chair, the Holy See would like to express its gratitude to you, Mr. Chair, for your efforts during this commission, and to Mr. Emmanuel of Indonesia and Ms. Silvia Paula Mendoza Iguea for their efforts in facilitating negotiations on this text over many hours and weeks. The Holy See would like to underscore once more its strong support for the theme of the Commission this year. From the outset, the Holy See expressed its hope for a focused, balanced, and consensual text that would highlight the crucial connection between education and sustainable development and the importance of ensuring equitable, quality education for all. It is unfortunate that the Commission was not able to set aside contentious issues in order to adopt a resolution on this very important theme. It is the view of the Holy See that the failure to achieve an outcome was the result of persistent disregard of the concerns raised by a number of delegations on controversial issues which are known to lack agreement, as clearly articulated throughout the entire negotiation process. It is regrettable that this process was derailed because of an inordinate focus on issues related to sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights and sexuality education. In this regard, the Holy See must express its concern at the language on comprehensive education on human sexuality. Sexuality education is one of the most divisive topics in this and other UN fora. While understanding that it is a priority for some delegations, the Holy See would like to make the following points. First, there is no right to sexuality education in international law. It is not enumerated in any treaty. It may not be read into a general right to education, and states have no obligation to adopt any particular program of education. This is in clear contrast to the rights of parents with regard to their children's education, which are instead enshrined in international law. Moreover, we cannot agree that the term comprehensive education on human sexuality is a generic. In fact, in light of both the international guidelines available and the programs created under them, there can be no doubt as to what the true ideological nature of comprehensive sexuality education really is. Moreover, from the positions articulated by numerous delegations, it is abundantly clear that many do not share this vision for their children's education. In conclusion, Mr. Chair, the Holy See is of the view that the success and longevity of this Commission is contingent on our return to the fundamental principle of consensus and true respect for the positions of all delegations, especially with regard to sensitive issues. And the Holy See will continue to work constructively towards this end. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
I thank the distinguished representative of Holy See and give the floor to the next speaker, the distinguished representative of Egypt. Please, you have the floor.
شكرا السيد الرئيس. فكما سبق الإشارة كان وفد جمهورية مصر العربية قد رحب باختيار العنوان الخاص بهذه الدورة وما يتناوله حول العلاقة بين السكان والتعليم والتنمية المستدامة. تلك العلاقة المحورية والمكملة لضمان تحقيق التنمية بالدول والرخاء لشعوبها، وذلك على النحو الوارد والموضح باستفاضة في برنامج عمل مؤتمر القاهرة الدولي للسكان والتنمية. And the International Cairo Conference on Population and Development Program of Action. Thank you. فقد وجدنا أن اختيار هذا العنوان فرصة لتعزيز التعاون الدولي والتضامن بين الدول ودفع روح التكاتف والمساندة لمعالجة الفجوات القائمة وزيادة أوجه الدعم للدول النامية للتغلب على التحديات التي تواجهها، لا سيما في تحقيق الهدف الرابع من أهداف التنمية المستدامة، خاصة عقب جائحة فيروس كورونا وغيرها من التحديات الدولية التي قيدت من قدرة الدول النامية على تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة. وانطلاقا من هذه النقطة، فقد شارك وفد جمهورية مصر العربية في المشاورات على مشروع القرار بإيجابية، داعيا طيلة المشاورات لاعتماد قرار يحظى بالتوافق بين كافة الدول، تأكيدا لأهمية العمل الدولي المشترك للتغلب على التحديات التي تواجه عالمنا اليوم، وذلك من أجل ضمان نفاذ التعليم للجميع. ومع الأسف فلم تمنح بعض الوفود ذات الأمر أولوية، إذ عملت طيلة فترة التفاوض على إضعاف الجوانب التنموية من القرار والتنصل من الالتزامات الدولية السابقة حول الهدف الرابع من أهداف التنمية المستدامة، وسعت لتقويض اللغات حول تبادل المهارات والخبرات ونقل التكنولوجيا والتقدم العلمي، بالرغم من كون العالم في أمس الحاجة لهذه الروح التضامنية في أعقاب الأزمة التي شاهدها العالم بأسره عقب الجائحة. ومن جانب آخر سعت هذه الوفود لتضمين فقرات شديدة الخلافية لا تحظى بالتوافق الدولي ولا تستند لأي مراجع في القانون الدولي، بل وسعت لتقويض كافة الإشارات لسيادة الدول والاستقلالية قراراتها فيما يتعلق ببرامجها التنموية الوطنية. السيد الرئيس، يأسف وفد جمهورية مصر العربية لفشل اللجنة في التوصل لتوافق حول مشروع القرار، إذ استمرت هذه الوفود في السعي لفرض رؤيتها لبرامج تعليمية محددة رغم اعتراض عدد كبير من الوفود في ظل خصوصياتها الثقافية والاجتماعية وسعيها لضمان تنفيذ برامجها التنموية بما يتفق مع قراراتها السيادية وتعهداتها الدولية والتزاماتها الوطنية. International obligations and national commitments. Thank you. وبذلك فقد فقدت اللجنة فرصة هامة لتجديد الالتزام الدولي بتسريع وتيرة الوصول للهدف الرابع من أهداف التنمية المستدامة. وإذ يدرك وفد مصر الصعوبة التي أدت لقيامكم بسحب مشروع القرار، يعرب عن تقديره لقراركم بالحفاظ على منهجية عمل اللجنة والتي احتفظنا بها طيلة السنوات الماضية. وسيظل وفد مصر ملتزما بالتعاون مع كافة الوفود لتحقيق التوافق في المستقبل وضمان الخروج بنتائج توحد الدول. شكرا سيد الرئيس.
I thank the distinguished representative of Egypt and now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Australia. Please, you have the floor, Ambassador.
Thanks indeed, Chair. I'd like to align myself with the statement delivered by Canada a few minutes ago and add a few words in my national capacity. Chair, as I said this morning, education is a fundamental human right. It provides children and adolescents with knowledge and skills that they need to be able to reach their full potential and participate effectively in society. Let me say it again. Education is a fundamental human right. And we do deeply regret that a small group of member states have prevented an outcome today on this important topic on the basis that they're unwilling to uphold a previous commitment that they themselves made 9 years ago on a topic contained in the ICPD Programme of Action. Again, as I said this morning, Chair, this is not an abstract issue. Comprehensive sexuality education is needed to enable young people to make informed decisions about their own lives and bodies, helping to prevent sexual and gender-based violence, including harmful practices. It helps prevent early and unintended pregnancies and sexually transmitted infections, including HIV. While the Commission was unable to arrive at an outcome this year, we will continue to work with our partners to support young people to reach their full potential. Thank you, Chair.
I thank the distinguished representative of Australia. Now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Ethiopia. You have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor. Mr. Chair, Ethiopia is fully committed to the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. We have aligned our 10-year development plan with Goal 4 of the agenda. 70% of Ethiopia's population is below the age of 30. Therefore, access to education, education infrastructure will define the future of Ethiopia. As such, education receives the utmost attention in our development plans. The focus of the team for this year's resolution, namely education and sustainable development, is of paramount importance to my delegation. Against the backdrop of COVID-19 and other challenges affecting particularly the developing countries, this was an opportunity to send a strong and united voice for a cause that all delegations are expected to commit to. Despite our sincere efforts to engage constructively, including by proposing compromise languages throughout the process, we are disappointed that it had to come to a point where the Commission would not have an outcome document on this important theme. This, Mr. Chair and dear Commission members, is indeed a lesson for future works of this and other similar commissions. The contested terminology has been presented as a red line from the get-go. It is time to recognize our differences on this topic and muster unity over the issues that are our common cause. This requires us to refrain from compromising our unity to advance divisive issues. Mr. Chair, lastly, commending you for your efforts, I would like to register our regret on the completion of this session without an outcome. Thank you so much.
I thank the distinguished representative of Ethiopia. Now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Uruguay. Please, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. En primer lugar, quisiera reiterar una vez más nuestro profundo agradecimiento por su arduo trabajo y compromiso para alcanzar e intentar un documento consensuado. También reitero nuestro agradecimiento a los miembros de la mesa, a los cofacilitadores y nuestro reconocimiento a la Secretaría por su trabajo profesional como siempre. Nuestro país estaba dispuesto a adoptar el texto tal y como usted lo había propuesto esta mañana. Desde nuestra perspectiva, el mismo mantenía ese delicado balance entre puntos de vista divergentes manifestados en sala durante las negociaciones, además de presentar un lenguaje acordado en esta misma comisión hace casi 10 años. Estamos profundamente decepcionados por la falta de consenso y la incapacidad de esta comisión para consensuar un resultado sobre un tema tan relevante como la educación en toda su extensión para la Agenda de Población y Desarrollo. En este contexto, nuevamente lamentamos no haber logrado un acuerdo. Este resultado nos afecta a todos, pero especialmente a aquellos más vulnerables, a niñas que aún permanecen fuera de las escuelas, a mujeres expuestas a violencia de género y a múltiples formas de violencia, y que se ven impedidas de acceder igualitariamente a las oportunidades que deberíamos de tener acceso todos. A las comunidades migrantes, afrodescendientes y a aquellos que viven en zonas rurales sin acceder a una educación de calidad. Pero para ser escueta, quisiera concluir solamente afirmando que esta discusión no concluye en esta sesión. Continuaremos trabajando para que aquello que acordamos, y repito, acordamos todos en el Cairo en 1994, así como los resultados de las conferencias regionales, sea una realidad para todos, sin distinción. Muchas gracias.
I thank the distinguished representative of Uruguay and now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the United Kingdom. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, Excellencies. Once again, the United Kingdom is grateful to you, Mr. Chair, and your team, and to the co-facilitators for your guidance and leadership throughout this process. Mr. Chair, as the UK underlined earlier this week, this Commission offers an invaluable opportunity to reaffirm our collective commitment to the ICPD Programme of Action, to recognise the important role UNFPA plays in implementation, and most importantly, to increase our ambition to deliver on the commitments we all made in Cairo almost 30 years ago. This year also offered us an opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to quality education for all. As we have heard from almost everyone who has taken the floor today, education is a basic human right. And investing in education, including CSE, is not just the right move, it is an essential move if we want our young people and adolescents to live healthier and happier lives. It is therefore regrettable that a minority, and it is a minority, have ambushed this year's outcome, have gone against previously agreed language from this very Commission, have disrupted the reasonable process set out by you, Chair, and have done so on arguments that are baseless and frankly dangerous. Mr. Chair, as we look ahead to ICPD at 30 next year, we sincerely hope that this Commission can secure an ambitious outcome, and you can rest assured that you have the UK's full support to that endeavour. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of the United Kingdom, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Saudi Arabia. Please, you have the floor.
سيد الرئيس، بداية أود أن أتقدم بالشكر لسعادتكم ولميسرين القرار على الجهود المبذولة خلال الأسابيع الماضية. السيد الرئيس، بالعلم تحيا وترتقي الأمم، وبالمعرفة تحيا وتتقدم الأوطان، فالتعليم جزء لا يتجزأ من نهضة الشعوب، كما أن التعليم مفتاح لتحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة. فالتعليم يعزز من قدرات الإنسان ويفتح الآفاق للنمو اجتماعياً واقتصادياً، ويساعد على الحد من انعدام المساواة وزيادة تحقيقها بين الجنسين، ويعزز التعليم من قيم التسامح ليعم السلام بين المجتمعات. السيد الرئيس، تولي بلادي أهمية كبيرة للتعليم، ونؤمن أن التعليم من أعظم الأدوات لتحقيق التنمية المستدامة، ونحن داعمين لجميع الجهود على جميع الأصعدة لتعزيز وصول التعليم للجميع وضمان حق التعليم لكل طفل. وانطلاقاً من ذلك شاركنا بالمفاوضات المطولة على القرار، آملين أن نصل إلى تبني قرار يحظى بالتوافق بين كافة الدول ليكون قراراً داعماً لموضوع التعليم والتنمية المستدامة. ختاماً، بصفتنا عضو في لجنة السكان والتنمية، أؤكد التزامنا بدعم عمل اللجنة، ونأمل أن نحصل على نص يحظى بتوافق الدول الأعضاء جميعاً في العام المقبل. شكراً سيد الرئيس.
I thank the distinguished representative of Saudi Arabia, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of El Salvador. Please, you have the floor.
Muchísimas gracias, señor presidente. Mi delegación desea iniciar esta intervención nuevamente reconociendo su labor al frente de esta comisión, la de su buró, la secretaría y sin duda el trabajo realizado por los cofacilitadores del proceso, los delegados de México e Indonesia. Y como indicamos antes, El Salvador brindaba y brinda su completo apoyo a su trabajo, señor presidente, por su compromiso y también sus esfuerzos para que esta comisión se consolidara y tratáramos de llegar a un acuerdo en este documento que nos proporcionara nuevos compromisos concretos en materia educativa y de población. Y también lamentamos que a pesar de todos estos esfuerzos, el trabajo arduo realizado por las delegaciones durante horas extraordinarias, no hayamos logrado acordar un acuerdo. Hablar de población, educación y desarrollo sostenible implicaba dar una mirada integral a las necesidades que ya todos conocemos y que se discutieron ampliamente, y cuyos cursos de acción, abordaje, diseño e implementación están en nuestras manos, en las manos de los Estados miembros. Hemos dado un paso atrás. Hemos retrocedido grandemente en nuestra intención de asegurar acciones que nos ayuden a afianzar compromisos que ya hemos asumido en la Agenda 2030 y en otros instrumentos de similar relevancia. No haber logrado ponernos en acuerdo en un tema tan relevante, urgente como es la educación, añade componentes que incluso dejan en evidencia nuestra propia falta de voluntad política, que nos permite asegurar las generaciones presentes, pero también aquellas que están por venir, que cuenten con las mejores oportunidades y que cuenten entonces con un mejor futuro. Lo voy a decir otra vez, hemos dado un paso atrás. No obstante, señor presidente, y totalmente alineados a esos compromisos que ya motivaban nuestra intención de alcanzar la adopción de este documento durante esta sesión, El Salvador reitera su intención y disposición para continuar impulsando acciones que nos coloquen más de cerca para alcanzar estos objetivos y metas en materia educativa, particularmente a favor de aquellos grupos poblacionales más vulnerables. Al culmen de esta sesión, mi país también habría finalizado su paso como miembro de esta comisión. Y por eso, señor presidente, permítanme hacer uso de este espacio para agradecer por la oportunidad de abonar al trabajo de la misma durante estos años, así como nuestro compromiso por dar continuidad con aún mayor entereza a los acuerdos que han derivado de ella durante los años precedentes, así como aquellos sobre los que tácitamente seguimos comprendiendo como altamente relevantes, pese a la falta de un documento que los afiance. Aún fuera de la membresía de esta comisión durante los siguientes años, mi delegación seguirá impulsando la incorporación del lenguaje en el que se reflejen las necesidades de los grupos vulnerables, visibilizando las necesidades de las niñas, niños, adolescentes y jóvenes, así como de otros con necesidades aún más particulares y aún no atendidas, tales como las niñas, personas con discapacidad, las personas migrantes y las personas adultas mayores, con el objetivo de continuar promoviendo la comprensión del envejecimiento como un asunto de importancia para la sociedad en general. Señor presidente, estimados delegados y delegadas, para El Salvador, el trabajo de esta comisión y los resultados alcanzados por la misma complementan el mandato de instrumentos que son piedra angular del quehacer de esta comisión, pero también de todas Naciones Unidas en general, como es la Declaración Universal de los Derechos Humanos, entre otros instrumentos que guían nuestras acciones y que buscan garantizar el bienestar de la población. Y como dije anteriormente, sobre todo los que están en una situación de alta vulnerabilidad. Y por eso es importante que todos manifestemos un compromiso real, una voluntad política para seguir honrando esos compromisos que se adoptaron hace muchos años, pero que siguen vigentes, a fin de que encontremos en el futuro, espero, que encontremos en el futuro salidas que garanticen cumplir con las expectativas y necesidades de estas poblaciones que están esperando resultados de nosotros, que están afuera de este edificio y a quienes nosotros nos debemos. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
I thank the distinguished representative of El Salvador and now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Malaysia. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the outset, Malaysia wishes to put on record our appreciation to you and the co-facilitators of the resolution, Ms. Silvia Paula Mendoza of Mexico and Mr. Emmanuel of Indonesia, for their stewardship of the negotiation process. It was beyond doubt a very challenging endeavor to bridge the different positions of states in the text. Malaysia reaffirms the right to education, which is enshrined in the human rights and developmental instruments, including the Plan of Action of the International Conference on Population and Development. The theme of the resolution of the Commission this year is timely, given the centrality of education in sustainable development, especially as we are now past the midpoint of the 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development. Mr. Chair, we are saddened that the committee could not agree on a resolution this year. We were ready to support a text that would have addressed the contentious issues at hand. Compromise language has been suggested to meet delegations halfway, based on language adopted by the General Assembly 4 months ago. Unfortunately, these were dismissed. The text had contained a number of elements that are critical for the strengthening of education and hence merited our support. However, we respect your decision to withdraw the text, Mr. Chair. Nonetheless, we hope that this regrettable episode is not repeated and that we can work together towards achieving consensual resolutions in the coming sessions of the Commission. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Malaysia and now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Senegal. You have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Je voudrais avant tout saluer votre courage et votre sagesse de retirer ce texte qui n'est pas du tout consensuel. Vous aurez noté toute l'amertume qui transparaît dans les discours, dans tous les discours que nous avons entendus aujourd'hui. Personne n'est content du résultat. Nous sommes réunis ici à l'ONU spécialement pour trouver des solutions. Pour trouver des solutions aux populations que nous représentons ici. Mais il me vient à l'esprit cette phrase de Léopold Sédar Senghor, le premier président du Sénégal qui était poète. Il matérialisait la rencontre des peuples et des civilisations La civilisation de l'universel est le rendez-vous du donner et du recevoir. La civilisation de l'universel est le rendez-vous du donner et du recevoir. Quand nous nous réunissons ici à l'ONU, nous venons d'horizons divers et de réalités différentes, de cultures différentes et de civilisations différentes. Mais cette différence est une richesse en réalité. Ça ne doit pas être une source de tension. Durant tout le processus, ma délégation, parmi une vingtaine de délégations, se sont engagées de façon constructive et ont proposé des libellés de compromis qui pourraient être acceptés par tous. Mais quand certaines délégations refusent même de céder une virgule dans un texte, cela cause problème. Et c'est parfois symptomatique. Monsieur le Président, nous ne pouvons pas répéter les mêmes choses et s'attendre à des résultats différents. Je pense que la Commission devrait tirer les leçons pour qu'à l'avenir, nous mettions surtout l'accent sur ce qui peut nous unir et éviter ce qui peut nous désunir. Parce qu'au bout du compte, ce qui nous réunit et ce dont nous voulons tous ensemble, c'est de voir l'ODD 4 atteint. C'est de voir les résultats de la conférence internationale sur la population et le développement appliqués de la plus belle des façons. Mais il faudrait au préalable que nous pensions à avoir un dénominateur commun. Il est possible, si nous le voulons, si nous y croyons profondément. Enfin, Monsieur le Président, ma délégation espère que dans le futur, nous aurons un texte qui répond à l'intitulé du thème proposé et qui ne prend pas des directions multiples et diversifiées. Je vous remercie de votre aimable attention.
I thank the distinguished representative of Senegal and now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Algeria. You have the floor, please.
شكرا سيدي الرئيس. إنه لمن دواعي أسفنا كدولة ملتزمة كل الالتزام بتحقيق أهداف وغايات أجندة التنمية المستدامة 2030 وكدولة يعد التعليم فيها من أهم الركائز التي من شأنها ضمان مستقبل أفضل أن لا نتمكن من التوصل إلى نص توافقي لهذه الدورة. وإنه لمن دواعي أسفنا الشديد أنه وعوض أن يتم إنفاق كل هذا الوقت والجهد والطاقات في محاولة إيجاد حلول فعلية وواقعية وملموسة لملايين الأطفال حول العالم يعانون من الحرمان من الحصول على التعليم اللازم وكل ما يرافقه ذلك من عدم التمكن من الحصول على التكنولوجيات الحديثة. تم التركيز وبإلحاح غير مبرر على مصطلحات خلافية وغير توافقية تم رفضها في لجان أخرى مباشرة قبل بدء المفاوضات في لجنتنا هذه. إنه ولمن دواعي الأسف أيضاً أن تتم التضحية بنص كامل بأكثر من 50 فقرة من أجل فقرة واحدة تحتوي على مصطلحات لا وجود لها في مواثيق القانون الدولي والتي يتم رفضها القاطع أينما تم طرحها. سيدي الرئيس، سعياً ودفعاً منها للحصول على نص يحظى بتوافق الآراء، اتجهت العديد من الدول نحو إبداء أكبر قدر ممكن من المرونة وتفادي الإلحاح المعيق لتقدم المشاورات حول العديد من القضايا الهامة لبلدانهم، غير أن ذلك اصطدم بالمساس بالخطوط الحمراء لهذه البلدان التي كانت على قدر كبير من الشفافية للتعبير عنها بشكل صريح منذ اليوم الأول للمفاوضات. ختاماً سيدي الرئيس، نعرب عن امتناننا لكم وللمسيرين وأعضاء المكتب على جهودكم المبذولة خلال هذا المسار، كما نأمل أن تتحلى الدورات القادمة بروح أكبر من التعاون من أجل التوصل إلى قرارات توافقية بين جميع الوفود. وشكراً سيدي الرئيس.
I thank the distinguished representative of Algeria, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Iraq. Please, you have the floor.
نشكركم السيد الرئيس على قيادتكم الحكيمة لعمل اللجنة في دورتها الراهنة، ونعبر في الوقت نفسه عن الأسف العميق لعدم تمكن اللجنة من الخروج بقرار لهذه الدورة بسبب إصرار عدد من الدول على تعميم نهجها الخاص المتعلق بالتعليم الجنسي الشامل على بقية الدول الأعضاء، وهو أمر بحد ذاته يخالف مبدأ عدم وجود حل مناسب للجميع كما نصت عليه أجندة 2030. السيد الرئيس، نستغرب هذا الإصرار على التغافل عن حقيقة مفادها أن هناك ملايين من الأطفال عبر العالم وبخاصة في الدول النامية غير قادرين على الحصول على التعليم بأبسط صوره، فكيف لنا أن نتحدث عن تعليم جنسي شامل لنوفر أولاً التعليم الأساس لهم أولاً وقبل كل شيء؟ إن التعليم وقيمته هو أمر مسلم به، لكن يجب الاعتراف أن مستوى التعليم عبر العالم هو ليس على مستوى واحد، وأن الدول تضع أولوياتها التعليمية وفقاً لسياقها الوطني والتنموي. لقد فقدنا وبكل أسف فرصة الخروج بنص توافقي بسبب هذا النص الخلافي. ختاماً، نتقدم لكم السيد الرئيس بجزيل الشكر على قراركم الحكيم، ونتطلع للعمل سوية في تجنب هكذا خلافات في قادم دورات اللجنة. شكراً جزيلاً.
I thank the distinguished representative of Iraq, who was the last speaker on my list. And we have another one. It's the distinguished representative of Iran. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you for giving me the floor, and sorry for asking the floor at this late hour. But please allow me to express my gratitude to you for your tireless efforts in this process. Mr. Chair, the Commission has been entrusted with the important task of assisting the Economic and Social Council inter alia on integrating population and development strategies. In other words, the very foundations of the Commissions are built upon two important pillars: population and development. This is the very reason for the revitalization of the work of the Commission by the ECOSOC in 1995, which renamed the Population Commission to the Commission on Population and Development. Nonetheless, this year, discussions regarding the proposals were centered not on education, but on very specific aspects of education, while there were quite controversial terms and also references to development, parents, family, and similar important topics that are quite pertinent to the works of this Commission were questions by some distinguished delegates. That being said, we highlight the importance of a balanced approach in future sessions of the Commission on topics, and in this respect, we are of the view that due regard should be had to the right to development as a foundational element of the mandates conferred upon the Commission. It goes without saying that the sovereignty, as well as cultural, social, legal, and religious specificities of states must be respected. Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, the unilateral coercive measures continue to be one of the pressing challenges that hinder the efforts of developing countries in achieving sustainable development. These unlawful measures, among others, prevent the implementation of joint academic research and exchange programs, the contribution of scholars to foreign scientific journals, and access to online academic databases. Unilateral coercive measures violate human rights of affected populations, in particular women and girls, and also children. Inter alia, it violates the right to education, the right to benefit from academic research and academic freedom, as well as the right to development. Given the detrimental effects of such unlawful measures, which have also been highlighted in the relevant documents of the United Nations, we are of the view that the Commission should more visibly address such challenges that member states face in achieving sustainable development. Mr. Chair, we came to this meeting with open mind and with the spirit of constructiveness. My delegation tried hard to reach a balanced and practical outcome, showed utmost compromise in this direction, and demonstrated that throughout this process by being consistent, transparent, and flexible. Nevertheless, we regret that we arrive at this point and have no resolution for the Commission this year, which is the obvious result of the insistence on contentious topics. We do hope that in future sessions of the Commission, discussions be focused on finding and strengthening common grounds that would guide us all towards consensus. We once again thank you for the hard work you've done in this process. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Iran, and now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Indonesia. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Indonesia commends your wisdom and courageous decision with regards to the outcome of the priority theme this year's CPD. We understand the difficulties faced and respect the decision taken by the chair that showcases strong leadership in the conduct of CPD session this year. Despite the many efforts and endeavors that have been dedicated, we understand well the difficulties to strive balance in an issue that divides member states in this year's discussion. Our biggest concern is embedded in the divisiveness of the comprehensive sexuality education or comprehensive education on human sexuality issue that causes division between member states. The issue in itself has successfully divided countries and impede the collective efforts to achieve greater targets that are common interest to countries. To highlight some of its targets that are discussed this year are transformation in digital education, international cooperation to ensure equal access to education for all, education for women, children, persons with disabilities, migrants, and older persons, investment in education infrastructures, as well as the capacity buildings of teachers, including digital skills. The targets that were mentioned were included well and were agreed among member states as shared importance in education agenda. This is a wake-up call for the United Nations that stronger push is needed. Push to focus on issues that are uniting and not dividing. We also extend great appreciation to Silvia Paula Mendoza from Mexico, your office, the Secretariat, and UNFPA for the great cooperation shared during the deliberation of the draft resolution. Indonesia is committed to continuously play active role in pursuing development in population and education agendas. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Indonesia. I see no more requests for the floor. The Commission thus has concluded its consideration of Agenda Item 3 as a whole. I now invite the Commission to resume its consideration of Agenda Item 4, entitled Program Implementation and Future Program of Work of the Secretariat in the Field of Population, in order to consider the timing of the consideration of a report on world demographic trends. In this connection, the Commission has before it the draft decision E/CN9/2023/L4, entitled Timing of a Consideration of a Report of World Demographic Trends, which I have submitted in my capacity as chair of the Commission on the basis of informal consultations facilitated by the Vice Chair, Mrs. Sarah Linton of Australia. I have been informed that the draft decision contains no program budget implications. Does any delegation wish to make a statement in connection with the draft decision? I see none. May I take it that the Commission wishes to adopt the draft decision entitled Timing of a Consideration of a Report of the World Demographic Trends as contained in document L4 and recommend it to the Economic and Social Council for adoption. It is so decided. Does any delegation wish to make a statement after the adoption of the decision? I see none. So the Commission has thus concluded its consideration of Agenda Item 4. And now I invite the Commission to begin its consideration of Agenda Item 5 in order to consider its provisional agenda for the 57th session. The draft provisional agenda for the 57th session has been issued in document E/CN9/2023/L2/Rev1. Are there any comments on the draft provisional agenda as contained in document L2/Rev1? I see none. May I take it that the Commission wishes to adopt the draft provisional agenda for the 57th session as contained in document L2/Rev1 and recommend it to the Economic and Social Council for adoption? I see none. It is so decided. Does any delegation wish to make a statement after adoption? I see no request for the floor. Thus, the Commission has concluded its consideration of Agenda Item 5. I now invite the Commission to begin its consideration of Agenda Item 6, entitled Adoption of a Report of the Commission on its 56th session. The procedural part of the draft report of the session is contained in document E/CN9/2023/L5, and I have the pleasure to give the floor to our distinguished Vice Chair, Rapporteur, Mr. Monei Fetsi Future-Apoleng of Botswana, to introduce the document. Mr. Apoleng, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished delegates, I have the honor to present the draft report of the Commission on Population and Development at its 56th session, which is before you in document E/CN.9/2023/L5. The draft report contains information on the organizational part of the 56th session, and it will be updated and completed where required. In addition, the proceedings of today's meeting of the Commission, including the action just taken on the draft proposals, will be reflected in the final report together with the decisions adopted. With regard to Section B on attendance, I should like to point out that those delegations that have provided information on their participation are currently reflected in the provisional list of participants. The list has been posted in the e-delegate portal. Delegations that do not appear on the list or those who wish to make corrections to the list are kindly requested to do so on e-delegate as soon as possible and no later than 5 o'clock p.m. on Friday, 21 April 2023. With that, Mr. Chair, I recommend this draft report for adoption by the Commission, and I request the authorization of the Commission to finalize the report with the support of the Secretariat. Thank you.
I thank the rapporteur for his statement. Are there any comments on the draft report? I see none. May I take it that the Commission wishes to adopt the draft report as contained in document L5 and to entrust the rapporteur with finalizing the report with the support of the Secretariat? I see no objection. The draft report is adopted. We have thus concluded our consideration of agenda item 6. Distinguished delegates, the Commission has thus concluded its consideration of all outstanding matters before the Commission. I now invite the Executive Director of the United Nations Population Fund, Dr. Natalia Kamyan, to make a statement. Please, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, civil society friends, colleagues, dear young people. May I congratulate you on the conclusion of the 56th session of the Commission on Population and Development. We saw considerable engagement from member states, civil society, and other partners, which reinforces the importance of the implementation of the ICPD agenda for all stakeholders. UNFPA regrets the absence of member state consensus on the theme of this year's commission. Yet, your statements on national experiences and discussions over the past few weeks were highly informative and very valuable. They highlighted the importance of quality education and lifelong learning opportunities for all, particularly as we work to address educational setbacks due to the COVID-19 pandemic. UNFPA was pleased to be able to support your noble efforts as you reflected on the need for sustained investments in school infrastructure, digital access, qualified teachers, and the importance of quality education for women's empowerment, healthier lives, and economic growth. You emphasize the power of education in combating gender-based violence and harmful practices. You also debated and discussed the critical role of comprehensive sexuality education that enables young people to protect and advocate for their health, their well-being, and their dignity. We are pleased with the adoption of the decisions on the special theme for the 58th session of CPD on ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all at all ages. As the world continues to adapt and recover from multiple interlocking crises, the importance of healthy lives and well-being are at the forefront of our minds. The upcoming review of the Declaration on Universal Health Coverage during the 78th General Assembly will raise many issues and concerns which we will be able to further reflect on in the CPD of 2025. On behalf of all of us at UNFPA, I thank our distinguished chair, His Excellency Ambassador Georgi Luka of Moldova, for his vision, his leadership, and his active engagement. We commend the dedication and the skill of Bureau members, and in particular, the co-facilitators, Indonesia and Mexico. I also would like to acknowledge the UN DESA Population Division for their stewardship of the Commission. Allow me also to express gratitude to my own dedicated UNFPA colleagues for their contributions to this year's session. And on this note, I would like to recognize Dr. Rachel Snow, outgoing chief of the Population and Development Branch in UNFPA's Technical Division, she has led on the development of the Secretary General's reports for the CPD for the past 8 years. She retires at the end of this month, and she's present for her last CPD session. Around the world, she has been acknowledged for her passion, her dedication, and the way that she shares her knowledge and expertise. This has been a tremendous asset to UNFPA, and she will be dearly missed. I would like to end on a note of thanks to the distinguished representatives, delegates, and observers of the Commission for your own hard work and your active participation in the deliberations in the run-up to and during the session, and your dedication and time spent in the in-person negotiations is very much valued and appreciated indeed. It is my hope that these discussions and the learnings will contribute substantially to the upcoming 2023 High-Level Political Forum and SDG Summit, as well as to preparations for the 2024 Summit of the Future. This commission is the guardian of the ICPD Program of Action, which has bettered millions and millions of lives around the world. And its mandate is clear: the rights, the health, and the well-being of individuals, and especially women and girls, are at the heart of our collective aspirations for people-centered sustainable development. As we gather next year to discuss the implementation of this landmark document on the occasion of ICPD 30, on that anniversary, I would like to recognize the work already underway in many countries and many regions to review the implementation of ICPD, and we do look forward to substantive reflections on how to accelerate this agenda in the decade of action as we move swiftly to achieve our common goals by 2030. And of course, we also look forward to discussion on the General Assembly's commemoration of ICPD 30 next year. On behalf of UNFPA and the UN system, allow me to reaffirm our commitment to partner with you to support the achievement of the ICPD Program of Action, upon which the success of the 2030 Agenda also depends. Let us continue to build on the substantive discussions held at CPD in recent years and on the momentum generated with civil society at the Nairobi Summit on ICPD 25 to accelerate the implementation of the ICPD Program of Action. We do have a collective responsibility to finish the unfinished business of the ICPD Program of Action and to fulfill the hopes and dreams and shared vision for a future in which no young person and no one indeed should be left behind. Thank you once again.
I thank the Executive Director of the United Nations Population Fund for her statement. I now invite the Assistant Secretary General for Policy Coordination and Interagency Affairs of the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, Mrs. Maria Francesca Spotorisano, to make a statement. Please, you have the floor.
Your Excellency Ambassador Gheorghe Leuca, Chair of the 56th session of the Commission on Population and Development, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I am delivering the following remarks on behalf of Mr. Li Junha, Undersecretary General for Economic and Social Affairs, who unfortunately is unable to join us here today. First, allow me to thank the chair of the 56th session, Ambassador Leuca of the Republic of Moldova. Mr. Chair, we commend you for your exemplary, and I repeat, exemplary leadership throughout this session and the sessions before, and for your tireless efforts to build consensus. Allow me also to thank you and the 4 vice chairs for the excellent collaboration with the Bureau over the past year. While the absence of consensus outcome on this year's theme is regrettable, the session overall has been rich in content and substantively engaging, with many insightful presentations and frank and thoughtful discussions. Throughout the week, we heard from experts, member states, civil society representatives about the crucial importance of education for all three components of population change, namely fertility, mortality, and migration. We also learned how the transition from the low levels of fertility, from high to low levels of fertility brings slower population growth and facilitates investment in human capital across the life course, which is central to the full, accelerated, and effective implementation of the ICPD Program of Action and the realization of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The multi-stakeholder panel on Tuesday morning helped identify complementarities with other functional commissions of ECOSOC, as well as contributions that the Commission can make to the discussions of the current theme of the ECOSOC and the HLPF. We will reflect on the lessons learned from this year's session to prepare for next year, when the Commission will commemorate the 30th anniversary of the Program of Action of the ICPD and will assess its contribution to the follow-up and full implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to sincerely thank the UN system partners for their substantive contributions to this session, including UNESCO, ILO, UNICEF, IOM, and the United Nations regional commissions that contributed through their participation in this week's session or in the preparatory expert group meeting held in September last year. The expert advice and hard work of our colleagues from the Department of General Assembly and Conference Management on procedural matters, the preparation of documents, the organization of virtual and in-person participation of speakers in the plenary meetings, and interpretation, allowed us to smoothly run the meetings this week. I would like to express our gratitude to our close collaborator and ally, Dr. Natalia Kanem, Executive Director of the United Nations Population Fund, and her team for their collaboration in the preparation of the annual session. In closing, let me again thank the Chair, the other members of the Bureau, and the Commission as a whole for their tireless efforts and continued commitment to fully implementing the ICPD Program of Action and accelerating progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals between now and 2030 and beyond. I thank you.
I thank the Assistant Secretary General for Policy Coordination and Interagency Affairs of the Department of Economic and Social Affairs for her statement. UNFPA Executive Director, Mr. Dr. Kanem, Assistant Secretary General Spatolisano, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. 29 years ago, following the International Conference on Population and Development, held in Cairo, member states requested this commission to support and review the implementation of a full range of activities outlined in the Program of Action. For the first time in 20 years, this commission has assessed the linkage just between population, education, and sustainable development this week. This assessment comes at a critical time when the world faces an education crisis, which was highlighted during the Transforming Education Summit last year. The debates during this week reflected the wide array of challenges the world faces in providing inclusive and equitable quality education and in promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all. We have also had practical solutions to address the crisis. Our session has produced high-quality evidence-based assessments and policy recommendations for the implementation of the ICPD Program of Action and the 2030 Agenda. Our panelists have provided us with much-needed information and with thought-provoking ideas. The significant participation of NGOs in the large number of side events have much contributed to making this session informative and worthwhile. Even though we were unable to come together on the resolution, I hope that this session has provided you with food for thought and with inspiration for the work that lies ahead of us. In closing, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all those who worked tirelessly to prepare and organize our annual session. To my fellow Bureau members, thank you for your role in organizing an interesting, innovative, and thought-provoking session, and for your friendship throughout this process, for ably chairing plenary meetings, for moderating expert panels, and as well as for performing a myriad of other duties with professionalism and dedication. To Sylvia and Emmanuel, thank you for your immense efforts in facilitating the draft resolution. To Sarah, for successful negotiating the 3 draft proposals. And to Monet for his work as rapporteur. To our panelists and moderators, thank you for enriching our deliberations. To all member state delegations, thank you for your substantive contribution to the discussions in the general debate and the interactive panels, and for your active engagement throughout the negotiations. To our colleagues from the UN system, thank you for sharing your expertise on the topics we have been discussing. To civil society, thank you for your contributions and insights, and for holding member states accountable for the commitments we make in New York. To the organizers of side events, thank you for informing our deliberations. To my staff at the mission, without whom I wouldn't have been able to take on the role of chair. And finally, to our colleagues from DESA, DGSCM, and UNFPA, thank you for your skillful and steadfast support to the chair and the Bureau and organizing and managing the annual session, including the informal consultations. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased that we were able to hold the session in person once again. A special thanks to those who traveled from afar, and I wish you all safe travels back home. Thank you. Distinguished delegates, before proceeding, and as the current session draws to a close, I would like to recognize the contribution of a well-known staff member of our Population Division, Mr. Bela Hovi. Mr. Bela Hovi has provided excellent support to the work of this commission over the past 2 decades. Since 2019, Bela has led the Secretariat team that supported the Commission's informal consultations on draft proposals. During that time, as Bela guided delegates to navigate the new world of online and hybrid consultations, he consistently demonstrated the depth of his knowledge and skill and the strength of his commitment to the Commission and to the United Nations. This will be the last CPD session for Bella as a UN staff member, since he will transition to a well-deserved retirement sometime in the next year. Bella, on behalf of the Commission, I would like to thank you for your service, which has been exemplary. I hope you will enjoy your remaining time at the UN, and I wish you all the best for the future. Thank you. Distinguished delegates, before concluding, please be reminded that the first meeting of the 57th session of the Commission will be held immediately following the closing of this session for the sole purpose of electing the new chair and other members of the Bureau. I declare closed the 56th session of the Commission on Population and Development. Distinguished delegates, I declare open the 57th session of the Commission of Population and Development and call to order its first meeting. In accordance with Rule 15 of the Rules of Procedure of the Functional Commissions of the Economic and Social Council and Decision 2005/213 of the Council, the Commission, immediately following the closure of a regular session, holds the first meeting of its subsequent regular session for the sole purpose of electing the new chair and other members of the Bureau. As such, the Commission will now proceed to elect the Bureau for its 57th session. First, I invite the Commission to elect its chair. As the Commission is aware, it is the turn of a group of Latin America and Caribbean states to hold the chair of the 57th session of the Commission. In this regard, it is my understanding that the group of Latin American and Caribbean states has presented the candidature of Her Excellency Noemi Espinosa Madrid, Deputy Permanent Representative of Honduras to the United Nations, for the position of chair. In the absence of any other nominations, may I therefore take it that the Commission wishes to elect by acclamation Her Excellency Noemi Espinosa Madrid of Honduras as chair of the 57th session of the Commission on Population and Development. I hear no objections. It is so decided. I congratulate the incoming chair of her election. I now invite the Commission to proceed to the election of the remaining members of the Bureau, and it is my understanding that the following nominations has been received. Mrs. Noga Barak of Israel from the group of Western European and other states to serve as Vice Chair of the Commission for its 57th session. May I take it, therefore, that the Commission wishes to elect by acclamation Mrs. Noga Barak of Israel as Vice Chair of the 57th session of the Commission. I hear no objections. It is so decided. On behalf of the Commission, I would like to congratulate the Vice Chair of her election. It is also my understanding that the African states, Asia-Pacific states, and Eastern European states have deferred the nomination of their candidates for vice chairs of the Commission to a later date. As per past practice, may I take it that upon nomination through the regional group, the candidates for the remaining post of the vice chair will be invited to participate fully in the Bureau meeting in preparation for the Commission's 57th session. I hear no objection. It is so decided. And I take the opportunity to reiterate the call for the regional groups to consider putting forward nominations to the Bureau as soon as possible in order to facilitate the preparations of the Commission in a timely manner, and I thank you. The meeting is adjourned.